time, I'll quickly go to invite the members of the panel. The panel is going to be looking at Organizing to Win. I'll be inviting Rachael. Rachael, are you here? Please a round of applause. Woo! Woo-hoo! Woo! Woo! I'll be inviting Kwezilomso. Call to action. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'll be inviting Leonard. Leonard, are you here? Ooh. And Ainka Jackson. Ainka Jackson, please. Ooh. All right, thank you. Let me sit on the other side. Let me join. Okay. Thank you very much. It's been a very wonderful discussion from the first panel where the foundation has been laid. I was talking to the person. Oh, you're welcome, sister. You're welcome. I was talking to the person beside me. I said, when we were growing up, we were told, and we believe, you know, when the military want to plan their coup plotting, it's never done in classroom. You don't have a class course that is called coup plotting 101. But they find a way to organize, and then they do the military takeover. This is our own power of movement 101. This is where we can talk. This is where we can decide and organize on what to do. So here, what I'm going to be talking about is more looking at organizing to win. And from the first panel, there have been several discussions. And I like Fumi's point of view about our liberation agenda should be paramount. And I also heard them speaking about what are we focusing on. My own 101 understanding of organizing says to me that there's a difference between reform and revolution. Are they the same? There's a difference between reforms and revolution. And what we're seeing mostly is the policy is not working. So there is a palliative way of saying, let us amend it. Let's make it work. So what we're seeing that plethora of laws and policies. We're trying to amend the electoral system on a political structure that cannot stand. There is entirely a difference between discussing about when we want to reform the society and when we want to see a radical change. When there's a radical movement, it's like pulling it down and replacing it because you can't put something on nothing. So what we want to hear from this conversation, and I know that we have several movement leaders sitting around here. So the discussion here will give a lead off, then we'll also get further comments from the floor. So I'm going to give the microphone to my sister on my left-hand side. First, to introduce herself, then to talk a little bit about learnings and lessons that we can pick from the movement. How do we begin to strengthen Pan-African movement? We've spoken a lot about movements done by individual organizations at different states. But how do we bring that collective action together to strengthen what we want to see? And I had my brother who spoke earlier here saying the time is now. So I start from you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Ainka Jackson. I am the co-executive director of the Selma Bridge Crossing Jubilee, which is the largest annual commemoration, civil rights commemoration. For those who may not be familiar, what happened on March 7th, 1965 in Selma, Alabama is called Bloody Sunday. And all the organizing that went on literally for decades before. So many people know about that day, but it literally, people were organizing for decades before Dr. King came to Selma. And that's important to know because Dr. King only came where he was invited and where there was already work being done. So often we focus on the person being highlighted, right? Like Dr. King, the leader. right? And then it makes it so much easier when that leader is taken out, right? But true movements aren't based on a leader, they are based on the people. They are based on the foot soldiers. And we had foot soldiers that sacrificed their blood, sweat, and tears over decades for that movement to happen, to lead to the ability for the barriers to be removed for us to be able to vote. Now, what I will say is, I guess I didn't finish introducing myself. I'm also the executive director of the Selma Center for Nonviolence, Truth, and Reconciliation. And that position is important because I was an attorney, and I was a public defender, and I was organizing around mass incarceration and school-to-prison pipeline, and I read the book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. And I'm like, I'm going to be doing this work forever until we start dealing with root causes. And this is the thing. We so often fight and argue about what is the right way. Thinking our way is the right way instead of realizing that all of the ways are needed. And so we need hearts and minds change and material condition changes. Is not enough, and the Selma movement really teaches us this, right? That our foot soldiers sacrifice for a law to be changed to help to change their lives, but because hearts and minds weren't changed, that law was gutted, and literally our country and indeed the world are living with the consequences now. And so it really takes hearts and minds and material conditions change. And I want us to know that, to think about that, the sister in the last panel, she talked about Audre Lorde's quote, you can't tear down the master's house with the master's tool. I also add, nor can you rebuild it. And so often we take on the master's tools. The white supremacy culture characteristic as there's only one right way, right? The either or binary is very dangerous because as we're trying to change hearts and minds, as we're trying to do revolution, people are struggling, and sometimes people need reforms in those contexts. And so I want to encourage us to begin to work with the people who are doing those things so we can do them in concert and they can aid the revolution instead of being against the revolution. So often we are so arguing about what is the right way instead of working together. And I think that we have to learn to not just decolonize our minds, but decolonize our hearts.
We need to decolonize our hearts. Thank you very much. We need to work with the people and make it work, with them. So let me go to Ainka.
To me? Oh, okay. Gosh, I'm so nervous. All power to the who? All power? All power? All power? Yeah. Good something, everyone. I think morning. My name is Kwezilomso. I organize on the anti-violence work, more specifically, or one of my biggest lenses is anti-GBV work in South Africa, but with a broader lens. And what was your question again? Sharing lessons and experiences. Okay, so I wanted to lift up about. So I organize one of the spaces I wanted to share with you is a collective that we built that is called the Call to Action Collective against gender-based violence, and it is made up of about 80 plus organizations and individuals in South Africa. Many of the organizations work in the country, but a lot of them also work in the region and continentally. And we organized primarily, or one of the bigger moments that we started to organize around were the total shutdown marches of 2018 that were all across the country, and some of them did in fact spread into the region. And this was in response to a particular moment of gendered violence. And so what we see in the country, even in terms of the political discourse, is that there'll be a couple of years and then there'll be kind of these cases that seem to reawaken an anger and a rage, bring us all together. And this was one of those moments. But I am actually quite excited by that movement in that we've kind of managed to stay together and do more work since 2018. We're known for a couple of things. The one is those marches. The second is we did these widespread political education initiatives on policy. And the third was around a sand tin shutdown. Sand tin represents one of the richest square miles on the continent. And we went there to make the link between violence on the body as an expression of the kind of economic violence that causes inequality, poverty, and all of those structural conditions. And so some of the things I then wanted to draw, or the lessons that I wanted us to collectively reflect on from that space is the importance. The first thing that I'm learning in Call to Action every day is the importance of building a shared vision and politic of the collective. A shared vision of what is the safe country that we want to see and how do we get to it. Now, this is not, as I've noticed, necessarily easy work, because we have to be working across experiences, across identities, across points of view, and across needs. And I think my sister alluded to it, because if you have such a diverse collective, we have very different views of what freedom looks like and what this moment of when we are safe, this is what will happen. And a lot of the time, we don't necessarily elevate this thinking and that work when we are merely responding to a crisis moment. It starts to show its cracks after we've kind of mobilized for a moment. We mobilized, we did the total shutdown marches, we handed in a list of demands. Some of the demands were met, some of the things that we'd asked for, the state started to do. But after that, the work then of making sure that we monitor these, even in the crafting of these, requires this shared vision and shared program of action and shared ways in which we organize. And so in our movement, for example, we have some tensions based on this idea of building a critical mass and who is in the critical mass and what does it mean for the mass to be critical, and do we always need a mass to do each and every single action activity? Because sometimes you need 3 people, other times you need 3,000 people. One of the second challenges that we kind of have to work around in this building of the vision is, our movements reflect our society, and South Africa is a deeply unequal society, which means we're coming in from various class positions, various levels of a kind of formal education background. We come from very different material realities. And so how do we build a shared language so that we can all meaningfully contribute towards building this vision? And how do we do it without going into some of the pitfalls of then saying, because we want to create a shared space, that the space ought not be critical, that we can't challenge each other as comrades, that all experience must then go into the document. And that's kind of one of the seeds I think I'd like to others to help me think through. I think the second frustration I wanted to lift, just in terms of experiences in movement work, is one of my frustrations, which is that, because I've organized across spaces, right, in my entire adult life, it doesn't seem like we are always ready for or build for disappointment and build for human beings, human being. So we don't have structures in place necessarily always that will deal with conflict, that will deal with comrades who start out and then they are lovers and then they are a beautiful love affair in the movement and then they break up. and they hold various pieces of the work, and then we get embroiled into whatever that mess was. We do not build for, as comrades, where we exert violence on one another, when we harm one another. We do not build for, again, the different material realities that what should we be doing with the resources? Do we organize a protest, or do we organize care packages that can immediately give food, give dignity packs, give clothing, etc.? And so that's for me the second reflection. And the third and last, just in terms of, I would say, looking forward and contemplating together, is that we need to be more conscious of building, how did I put it? I think I've written it quite.
I'm still coming back to you anyway.
Yeah.
You can keep that for the second round. Okay.
No, that's perfect. All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Just a round of applause. Thank you very much. And I like the point about building a critical mass and also developing a shared message and some other issues that you have raised. So in terms of looking at having a Pan-African movement, it's important for us to be asking ourselves the very important question: how do we get to this level where we have a Pan-African movement with shared language, with critical mass? So we would come back and ask all of us about what 2-3 points that you want to push, for us to get to that level. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. I go to Rachael. Am I correct? All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much. My name is Rachael Mwikali, Pan-African feminist activist, community organizer, organizing with Pussy Power Movement. So I'll break all the protocols. I'm tiny, but with a lot of voice. So no protocols for me. I know we are comrades, we are friends, we are siblings, everything. Is that allowed? Yes. So to the funders in the room, could you please raise your hand? I see you. We affirm you. If you are older in different spaces, whether it's in your movement or your organization, whichever space, please just raise your hand. Not in a bad way, it's out of love. Thank you so much. Clap for them. If you are an activist, feminist, queer person, traditionalist, religious leader, everything that is movement, please raise your hand. Thank you. If you're a government official in this meeting, you can be government official and a movement person. Is it not true? If you're a politician, please raise your hand. Or aspiring politician, raise your hand. Thank you. So please, all the titles with Chatham rules, put them aside. Why am I saying this? Based on the discussion we are having of power of the movement, and then also from the morning conversation, where we are now comrades, there's no playing soft. And we have to talk to each other, not from what I usually say, a testimony point of view, but from a convention point of view. Like, this is the reality. The same way our heads of states or oppressors meet in the same table, they strategize against us, we need to do that. So it means you need to pay attention to this panel. Like the way oppressors, we see them on TV on Africa Union. Last time we saw them also with the anti-gender, anti-rights, the way they talk. So I want to give a few case studies of different movements, not from only Pussy Power or CJHRU or any other movement. And with this, also recognizing there are a lot of comrades in this room that have played critical role in ensuring, because we are talking about strategies, we are talking about what has worked, what has not worked, and what needs to work. So I'll start with an example of Justice for Thulani. Comrade Ibrahima said something in the morning that is very important, and I'll want you, as part of the movement in the room, see the resource in each one of you. When we met Thulani in Johannesburg, we were all in Baraza, like talking, comrades and everything. But we didn't know that some few years later, we'll start Justice for Thulani in Kenya. We'll start the Justice for Thulani to be able to reach to the level that it reached. So what I'm trying to communicate is that when we met, everybody was like, comrades, we are going through the same thing, and we were not able to see who is who based on title. We were like, we are comrades in the room. And you saw now it went and escalated to the level that we were very clear on the narrative, justice for Tulani, Mswati must fall. As much as our government tried to refuse from our end to protest, saying, go and protest there in Eswatini or Swaziland, we were very clear, like this is our comrade, he's a human rights lawyer, and we were able to bring in different expertise through WhatsApp to be able to push and support us. There's also reject finance bill, what Anifa said, which I don't want to repeat. There's also Team Courage from Boniface. I've seen Boniface in the room. I don't know Kamoko around. Viva. Like, he can also give you example later on also how he has been able to use activism and stuff. I don't want to speak on his behalf. We have seen also CDO in the room with anti-GMO bill. Please, wherever you are, around food sovereignty and seed sovereignty, or now communities and farmers have been able to be engaged in this discussion, because if you're talking about anti-GMO, which I'm also anti-GMO, and around land rights, where we are seeing some of also financiers, which is also like a movement, we need to check that majority of financiers, which also is the contradiction. We are fighting, let's say, Bill Gates, but on the other space where I'm working, the contradiction on SRHR, we are seeing Bill Gates financing SRHR. You're seeing the contradiction, not the enemy, huh? Because the work is important to us, SRHR. But however, how is one funder on this side funding another model that is oppressing on this side, when Comrade talked about internal and external? So knowing this contradiction matters a lot. Team N, Femicide Kenya in the room. Amazing women. This is a struggle that has been ignored a lot in Kenya. This is a struggle that has done a lot in this continent, a lot globally, around saying that as women, we can't be killed, and then states are quiet, or people are quiet, or moral cards versus the legal cards are being played against us. And I thank these women because it's through their work that also, we are writing also our story, that led also now to the GNZ being what it is. It's through the work of farmers, the work of Team Courage, the work of also LGBTQ movement, the work of artists that led to giving the courage to the civic space, that the results we are seeing. These are some of the examples, even the African People's Assembly, which Joab and Nikala are here. Or now we have been able, even when they had the climate summits for African governments, they did not involve us. So in a nutshell, in terms of strategy, and I know that's why I ask questions around the power, we need to understand there's strategies, there's influence, and there's power. And there's money. We can't avoid talking about money. And I know this is something that as movements we avoid talking about it, but we need money. We avoid talking about expertise, which we have. We avoid talking about solidarity being expensive and not expensive. Because solidarity is expensive. And solidarity is not expensive. And solidarity can be even in the small positions of power. Each one of you hold. Beyond 8 to 5 job, you're still a human being. If your job stops today, where would you go? We're not saying jobs should stop. If, for example, we are saying we want to be associated with the GNZ movement in Kenya, how are we supporting it? And some of these things has been some of us even co-opting the space to go and learn and then fighting back. Some of this space has been even studying the global politics, what BRICS was able to say, knowing how does American politics affect Kenya? It affects. How does funding models for movements affect? It affects. And this one also is a strategy I like to tell donors and funders in the room that our lives, our organizing on movements, depending how you understand social movements, is different from NGOization of struggle. Can I repeat that? Our lives, the way we organize in movements, is different from NGOization of struggle and how we organize. Most of movements' reports are written in people's hearts. Donor-funded reports in papers and in laptops. And if I can tell you, and many people in the room, despite your 8 to 5 jobs, because we're not here to fight, we're here to bring in discussions that can support the movement. In rare cases, is it that people went and say, here is the concept note? Because most of us don't know how to write those concepts sometimes. And that's why you could see the GNZ was more impactful, and even some of the movements we have, where also the middle class, you know your role. How many middle class in the room? Don't feel guilty. It's not bad to be a middle class. So there's a role a middle class as a strategy that plays in the struggle. We can give the idea you put the English. Give the idea you put the English, that it looks better also to a funder, okay? But the work still continues. You do the work. However, also we need to acknowledge that even for some of us, including me and many, to be able to go where we are, it had to open the doors. Yeah. And I can give an example, even D is here. For me to be in Baraza space was through D. Breaks. Influence. Any meeting I go, Becky will be like, meet Pusipa, and this, which builds so many of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. All right. Well, thank you very much, Rachel, and I like that about the strategies, influence, and power, and also the fact that solidarity does not come very cheap, so it is quite expensive, and it can also be not expensive. Leonard, let's hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to, first of all, I'm Leonard Quartey, and I coordinate the Africa Water Justice Network. I would like to start off answering the question by showing an example of the change that we seek as the Africa Water Justice Network. So if you look at funding for the water sector in Ghana, the requirement is around $1.7 billion annually. Hello. If you look at what was made available in 2023, you are looking at about $120 million as against the requirement of 1.7 billion. If you look at what came through in 2024, you are looking at about $40 million, a sharp drop, even for the meager amount that is being provided. So this is the situation we are dealing with, and you look at this budgetary provision, and it has resulted in very high new connection service fees for people. So you have a lot of households, a lot of communities who are not able to connect. It has resulted in a situation where if you look at the household connection is less than 30% coverage. Usually the states will like to use what they call access. And access is when water is available, but then whether households are connected or not, that is not accounted for. But then if you want to look at household connection, it is woefully inadequate. So, and this situation applies in many African countries. Unfortunately, the populations are beginning to learn to live with it as though it is normal. Very normal to pick up the jerry can, put it on the head of the poor female child to just go pot water to the house. And this is the examples that, or the situation that you find. So what do we want to see change? We want a situation here on this continent where households are connected. I mean, all households are connected, that the average person wakes up and can walk into the bathroom, turn the tap on, into a kitchen, or if not at all, on their compound, a standpipe, where they can turn on the tap and have access to water, and then do away with the burden of kids making up for this lack of, kids and women making up for this lack of infrastructure. So, of course, this demand is seen as radical, but there's nothing radical about using the tax contributions of citizens to provide this basic, essential need. So it might be seen as a revolutionary idea, given the kind of situation and the normalized deprivation that we see. But then for us, this is a very harmless idea that will bring a lot of relief for people. So for this to happen, and in terms of how we can, for larger civil society, social movement, how we can ensure that some of these changes are being realized, it means that we should be able to reclaim the usurped voices of ordinary people. I mean, these voices have been usurped by donor-influenced log frames and what have you, and these issues are not finding space within mainstream discussions. So that is, and it calls into question. I think the point was made about the internal and the external changes. So within civil society, within social movements, we need to look at this thing, because if we are not able to harness and bring out and express the authentic voices and concerns of people, then it limits what we are able to achieve as civil society. I want to put it as civil society. It limits. And then the second thing will be mainstreaming some of these very harmless ideas. I mean, why should it be considered as fringe or radical when you are calling for increased service connection to, water service connections to homes? So we should be able to change the character and processes for and infrastructure for of creating civil society voice and expressing that voice, such that some of these concerns will be visible in public. As things are organized now, it is very difficult, and that is what some of our strategies as the Africa Water Justice Network is deploying. So how to mainstream, support communities, support organizations to bring some of these issues to life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I will just thank you so much. Just keep the mic with you. Just tell me one strategy that we need to put in the power of movement. Just one. In 1 minute. We are wrapping up. We have just 5 minutes left there.
Strategy will be supporting, allowing most of the work, action, to take place at the grassroots. So, for example, the main strategy is to use our resources to ensure that our grassroots membership are active.
Okay. Active.
If the grassroots are not active, the network, it is the grassroots or the member organizations that make up the network.
Thank you.
If they are not, then the network is not. So you might be organizing all the regional meetings, national meetings. Once the grassroots are dormant, it means it will take a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So grassroots is very important. Please, a round of applause. Yeah. Rachael?
I think for me, it's resource crazy, weird ideas. That's one. And then Gloria in the room, could you please stand up or wave? Gloria Madegwa from Defenders Coalition. We need to bring in the aspect of protecting defenders and safety and security. We can't avoid, people are talking resourcing wars, resourcing military, but we need to protect the part of resourcing defenders, activists, feminist activists in a way that says win. Not in a way that gagged me so that I can't move forward, but I'm expected to be told you have resources. Why are you not moving? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very good. So protecting defenders and resources. Thank you. Yes.
Hi. Oh. Is this on? Okay, thank you. So I think the one quick thing I want to say is that we need to remember that diversity is not just something that's cute, and that it is necessary for building new forms of power and building new things, because it matters who is in the room, what they're bringing, and how then that expands your horizon and expands your imaginative capacity. So if a sex worker is not in the room, if an LGBTI person is not in the room, okay, an L or a G or a B or a T or an I, because they don't live in one person, that limits what we have in terms of dialogue, because dialogue is not just sharing, it is sharing, and then from that sharing, sparking something new. And the second quick thing I want to say is that we need to also remember the long-term nature of, like, our oppression has happened over centuries, and therefore our liberation will happen over centuries, unfortunately and sadly. And so the slow work of just building relationships is the thing for me that then lays the ground for when the moment of eruption comes. The slow work of building the consciousness, of building the Ubuntu, the Harambe spirit, of that is what enables the, it happens because it's so embedded that we think we just came up with it. But there are activists who worked tirelessly to make sure we rethink what a resource is. We rethink what a fundraising moment can do. We rethink what a protest is. And when I'm just able to do it and not necessarily recognize that my body is filled with all of this knowledge of that slow, boring sometimes, relationship building work. Yeah, and if, for example, just for the funders or whomever, if we decided in this room that no one is going to write a project proposal for 2 years ever again, they just don't exist anymore, right? And so that's sometimes part of how we harness power. We make a decision, all our projects are going to be 15 plus years, and no one's writing another proposal. Then,
well, thank you very much. I like that. Yeah, back to you.
To my soul sister over here, we match in spirits because I truly believe that change can happen overnight, but transformation moves at the speed of relationship. Beloved Community is all about raising relationships to a height where justice prevails and people can reach their full human potential. And so often we're so consumed with the justice and the human potential, we miss the relationship. And I believe you can't build a beloved community without being it. And if you want to win, Asada Shakur said, it is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. And we have to love and support each other. And we miss that part so often. So we have to love and support each other. And we have to work systemically. And for us, that means on a personal, cultural, and institutional level. So often we believe that systemic work is institutional work, and it's not just institutional work. It's institutional, it's cultural, and personal, because in every institution, it's made up of people, and people with cultural beliefs and values. So we have to work on all three levels. And I just want to say, in closing, an example of that is our model of Beloved Community Block Clubs. It's a concrete example of bringing these things together. So it's a value-based, neighborhood-based initiative that serves as like parallel governance, parallel self-governance that's rooted in interdependence. where we combine some of these things that are often dependent, separate and siloed, like power building and organizing and direct service, right? They're all together, and it's a form of collective self-reliance. And we can do everything from reparative justice through these things. We can do connect across the diaspora through beloved community block clubs. We can communicate throughout the diaspora. But there's so many things, once we get a system together, that we can be in relationship and build power together.
Wow, thank you very much. Please a round of applause. I want to thank the panel. You've done so well. Support, solidarity, relationship. I think that's a good way to stop this conversation this afternoon.